I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
The Snow White version is woke and feminist and progressive.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantata is the only global solution.
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
What do you get when a diva actress with an attitude teams up with a preachy woke agenda to butcher a beloved Disney legend? The live-action Snow White, a colossal $200 million flop that went down in flames so fast, it made fairy tales look like slow motion. This cinematic train wreck exploded harder than anyone saw coming, leaving fans furious and the studio scrambling for answers.
Snow White gets her name, not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. She gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
This disaster wasn't merely a flop. It was a brutal lesson in driving audiences straight out of empty seats. Rachel Zegler, the self-important diva whose ego outshines her skills, joined forces with Disney's ridiculous rewrites to guarantee this reboot spectacularly imploded. Fans were left stunned. Theaters stayed ghost towns, and the backlash hit like a tsunami.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
This once enchanting story spiraled straight into a nightmare, turning what should have been a magical escape into a cringeworthy disaster. Instead of fairy dust, it was soaked in forced agendas and over-the-top performances that killed every ounce of charm. Audiences didn't just lose interest, they walked out, furious and betrayed by a story that was supposed to be timeless, but ended up a total mess.
If you've ever trusted a first reaction by anybody in the media, please go look at the list of names of people who hyped this up as a good movie and make sure you never take their opinions seriously ever again.
Disney was betting big, $150 million big, on a blockbuster opening weekend fueled by nostalgia and Zegler's so-called star power. What did they actually get? A humiliating $43 million domestic haul. That's not just a miss, it's a full-blown disaster. Theaters were ghost towns, audiences stayed home, and the hype evaporated overnight. Why? Because Zegler's nasty attitude chased fans away. For years, she'd slammed the 1937 classic in interviews, calling it weird and outdated, acting like she was too cool to care about the legacy she was supposed to honor. And just when things couldn't get worse, her explosive anti-Trump rant in February 2024 sealed the deal, turning casual viewers into outright enemies of the film.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
Megyn Kelly didn't hold back. She unleashed a scorching takedown on this spoiled diva, and the boycott frenzy on X blew up like wildfire. Zegler's entitled, arrogant vibe became a glaring red flag for everyone paying attention. "She's exactly why I'm skipping this mess," one furious fan tweeted. "Can't stand her." Disney banked on that so-called woke edge to draw crowds. Instead, it blew up in their faces and drained millions from the box office. This wasn't just a flop, it was a financial nightmare fueled by arrogance and tone-deaf politics.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
Disney didn't just reboot Snow White, they tore it apart with a forced woke agenda no one wanted or needed. The 1937 classic was a charming story about a kind-hearted princess, a heroic prince, and 7 lovable dwarfs. But the 2025 version, a preachy, convoluted mess that barely holds a candle to the original. Zegler flaunted it back in 2022, boasting, "We ditched that old-fashioned love story nonsense. This is about her fighting her own battles." She acted like she'd single-handedly fixed a beloved classic nobody asked to be fixed. And the prince? Once the dashing hero, now reduced to a creepy, forgettable extra barely seen on screen.
She's not going to be safe for the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Oh my God.
The iconic evil queen's fierce jealousy over Snow White's beauty got watered down into a bland, meaningless power play. Disney's executives shoved their agenda so hard, they gutted all the romance and magic that made the original a timeless masterpiece. And those new songs? An absolute disaster that left audiences cringing instead of humming along.
Prince Charming in the traditional fairy tale and in the 1937 movie has been replaced by a common criminal.
The 1937 classic gifted us unforgettable gems like Hi Ho and Someday My Prince Will Come, songs that stuck in your head for generations. The remake's soundtrack? A chaotic jumble of forgettable noise that crashes and burns, failing miserably to capture even a shred of that timeless magic.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative. It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level? What does that mean?
Zegler might have the vocal chops. She wowed in West Side Story. But these new tracks, pure nonsense. Lines like, "Your voice will carry through and bring that dream to you." Just empty words echoing in a hollow mess. Then there's Mirror's Lie, a bleak, never-ending queen rant that even Godot's voice can't rescue. YouTube fans tore it to shreds. One top comment slammed it. Snow White's supposed to be a musical, not a snooze fest lecture. Back in 2023, Zegler hyped the new songs as modern, not corny, but her arrogant woke vibe was crystal clear, like she thought the originals were beneath her. Critics weren't buying it either. They called the soundtrack a clunky mismatch. Too heavy, way too forced. No catchy tunes, no replay value, just a flop that won't get anyone humming.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime, and let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
This movie's tone, overloaded with woke preaching that smashed all the magic to pieces. The feminist hammer came down so hard, it completely obliterated any charm. Men got slammed worse than ever. The prince was downgraded to some creepy background shadow, and Zegler even labeled him a stalker back in 2022. Disney didn't hesitate to run full speed with that narrative. And the dwarfs? Forget lovable sidekicks. They're just overworked drones, stuck laboring while Snow White lectures them non-stop about inner strength. It's a bizarre power play that turned a fairy tale into a tedious manifesto.
There's no life lesson to be had here, and instead it gets replaced with something far more sinister. They make a revisionist Marxist call to arms, where it is Disney's closest film to paraphrasing the Communist Manifesto, and it does.
Snow White is the fairest of them all because she has these communist sensibilities to share all resources with the farmers that till the land, and she got those sensibilities from her mother and her father.
The entire movie practically yells "men suck" from start to finish. Zegler made sure of it, gushing in interviews about how this story isn't about some guy swooping in to save the day. She openly trashed the original for having a hero, acting like that was some outdated mistake. Fans, they were furious. Where's the teamwork? Where's the heart? Instead, they got an overdose of girl boss nonsense that crushed all the magic and left the fairy tale feeling hollow and lifeless.
Now you wash the dishes. Use the broom.
In the original Snow White, she cleans the cottage after woodland animals take her there. When she learns the 7 dwarves live there, she offers to cook and clean the place for them as a sign of her gratitude. But in this one, she breaks in and then forces the dwarves to clean for her. So clearly the Barbie screenwriter they hired to write this film thinks that this is a clever kind of role reversal. Funny that making a feminist version of a character always means, in practice, just turning her into an unpleasant, unlikable nag.
The modern empowered Snow White won't even allow domestic labor carried out by herself. Instead, she orders the dwarves to tidy up themselves, even when they've had a hard day down the mine.
It's their house.
But it's so obvious now because of the blight of intersectionality that's spread throughout our entire society that we can't have a woman holding a broom. Not that Rachel Zegler would know what to do with a broom other than fly on.
The dwarfs got the short end of the stick, No, strike that. Not once, not twice, but 3 times over. Initially, Disney wanted to cast real little-person actors, just like the original film. Then in 2022, Peter Dinklage made his opinion loud and clear.
They should have just dropped it like every other steaming pile of dog shit they put on Disney+.
Disney flipped the script again, ditching real actors for CGI magical creatures, glowing, glitchy avatars that looked more like budget video game rejects than enchanting companions. Then came the leaks. These creatures were doing all of Snow White's chores, cooking, cleaning, the whole grind, while she lounged around marking strike 2. By the 2024 reshoots, Disney reworked them into a diverse gang of bandits who still did all the hard labor. Strike 3. Snow White was no longer the hardworking heart of the story, but a bossy figurehead barking orders. The final dwarfs, a confusing CGI disaster that left fans scratching their heads and no one satisfied.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, it's 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right.
Zegler's toxic, arrogant, woke attitude? A major turnoff. Her years of trashing the original, plus that infamous Trump rant, alienated fans. The heavy-handed feminist makeover only made things worse. Dads felt completely erased. Moms missed the magic and warmth. It's not fun, one former fan posted. My daughter wanted songs, not lectures. Theaters reported half-empty seats, and merch like dwarf dolls sat gathering dust.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it.
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White have, of course, all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV. There's power of television. And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
took a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of dwarves.
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There you
So
go.
those guys didn't make it.
No.
That guy's 6'2". That's sleepy, that's drunky, that's cokehead.
But what? You're joking.
They look like Santa's helpers.
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
This movie bombed so catastrophically, families wouldn't even step foot near it. Opening weekend was supposed to be a packed house, kids in princess dresses, parents chasing nostalgia. Instead, dead silence. That pitiful $87.3 million haul wasn't just disappointing. It was a brutal slap in Disney's face, falling shockingly short of the $150 million break-even point. With marketing costs piled on, losses could soar to $150 million.
By the way, she's not a good actress. Never should have been cast for this role. I mean, you could just look at her. You say, that's not Snow White. I mean, come on.
Just in, an enormous cultural failure, Disney's Snow White, which cost $250 million, raked in a miserable $43 million during its premiere, and that's from the AP. Imagine if you guys just made entertainment sake for the sake of entertaining.
Disney's own numbers revealed a staggering 60% drop in family attendance compared to Cinderella's remake. Zegler's entitled diva act combined with the preachy tone turned the film into a ghost town. No magic, no cash, just a colossal 0. Well, maybe a 1, according to IMDb. Hollywood insiders are whispering. Disney execs are in full-on meltdown mode. Layoffs rumored. Plans for future remakes shelved indefinitely. This broke them, an insider spilled. Studios are terrified to touch any classic now. The stock plunged 3% after the premiere. Zegler's now box office poison. One casting director said, "She's got talent, but she's toxic for ticket sales." Rumors swirl that she's been dropped from the Hunger Games sequel. Unconfirmed, but her rude woke streak fits the profile. Online, she's a meme. Zegler, the fairy tale flopper. Could Disney have cut her loose after the Trump meltdown? Maybe, but it was too late. Her ego and Disney's stubborn agenda sank what should have been a guaranteed hit. This fairy tale died with zero sparkle left. Disney handed Zegler a crown jewel, and she shredded it with woke rants and endless attitude. The beloved dwarfs were reduced to a CGI mess, the songs bombed, and the feminist agenda crushed any chance at charm. Zegler's career is teetering. Disney is left licking deep wounds. Fans are furious, angry about the changes, the diva attitude, the entire disaster. Will Disney learn from this colossal failure? This isn't a fairy tale ending. It's a brutal wake-up call. What's your take? Could they have saved this train wreck, or was Zegler's meltdown just too toxic to fix? Drop your thoughts in the comments and catch me tomorrow for the next explosive video.